Songs in Crimson is the seventh full-length album from traditional heavy metal band Satan. This Newcastle upon Tyne-based group have been around since the late 70s, and really, I think it's important to continue to repeat the context of this band, that they were around for the new wave of traditional or of British heavy metal as heavy metal became popular in England and as a result around the world. They were very important for the neat records niche of the new wave of British heavy metal, and that was a heavier side of that wave. They weren't really turning out cheesy hits, but they were putting out punk records next to heavy metal records. They were putting out Venom. They were putting out all these great bands like Atomcraft and Satan were kind of not necessarily a flagship band at the time. There were more popular releases on their discography, but it's important to put into context that this band were a part of the new wave of British heavy metal, and that they have retained a lot of those personality and qualities that they brought along. It is important to note that they started out with a little bit of a different sound. They had different vocalists along the way, and by the time it was they were ready to cut a record, Brian Ross showed up. He had been in Blitzkrieg previous. I think that band had split by then, and he was just really the right fit for the band at the time, and then the wrong fit all of a sudden. So they have a huge discography and also some albums under other names. It is not that complicated to parse. It's important to know that context because it is exceptional that they came back in about 2011 and decided to start putting out exceptional heavy metal albums. And it's important to note that Life Sentence was an album outside of time. It felt like a return in the same way that Blitzkrieg's 1995 record had returned with it felt like it was very much an 80s heavy metal record with a very kind of a raw production value, because the idea is that the new wave of British heavy metal sounded a certain way. And I think that's an important note going to this latest record, and we'll get a couple more notes on production and sound and what I think this album is trying to do after we listen to a clip and you hear what it sounds like. So we'll cut right there and get started after that.
Around, turn back the tide. I now command you, turn the tide. Hold back the tide, hear my demand. Repel the tide, turn the tide.
So it isn't that Satan can produce records in their sleep, it's that they always have a very high standard for themselves, and it starts with fantastic guitar work. It starts with a fantastic singer. They've got a great drummer. Every bit of their band is not only talented but well proven over the years, and a lot of that work really has been done on these post 2011 albums. All of them have been basically fantastic. A couple of them have topped my best of the year lists. I've been a fan of this band forever, and very much have always been a cheerleader for some of their more obscure or lesser known releases, or bands like Pariah. So with that in context, knowing what this album seems to intend to do, and they say it outright that they're writing songs here. This is meant to be more of a collection of songs that get right to the point. They hit their hook and they move on. And that makes for several about 4 to 5 minute heavy metal songs with a lot of traditional heavy rock influences to them, which might venture as far back as the late 60s and certainly into the 70s as they go on a couple of tangents, while not leaving behind the speed metal past that they have always had in injecting their own vigor into the new wave of British heavy metal tradition. Now, I'm not saying they're stuck in the past so much as I feel like this record specifically, with its production values, guitar tones, and songwriting, does reach back into the impetus of the band. It does reach back into some of the intensity of their early work, and the production values reflect that, with the sort of explosive and fuzzy guitar noises and the general rhythm guitar tones, which are a step away from the more direct and thrashing wave that the band has been on for the last couple of records. Earth Inferno was certainly a fiery heavy metal record, but this is urgent, but also there's a dismayed tone to this record, and it really does fit with, well, this is how a new wave of British heavy metal band would sound in 2024 if they weren't washed up. They don't sound like they've forgotten or lost the plot. They haven't tried to modernize their sound in any kind of ridiculous way. They're still delivering a fine record in the sound of Satan. And the thing is that I think generationally speaking, that might be hard to pick up on if you're used to not only throwback albums but remasters, because as I've seen people complain about the production values of this album, I felt like they were perfectly fitting. If you go back and listen to the first Quartz album, for example, or even just an early Sarah Thangol album, it just the early 80s sounded a certain way. There were certain tools available. I'm not saying that it sounds like this the vocals were recorded on a ribbon mic or anything like that, but I do think this is an appropriate sound for this band, and in a way it helps to characterize this record in their discography, because a big point for this group is that they do something different on every album. Otherwise, why do it at all? And that really shows on their discography. And the thing to do different here is really just to hit very consistent songwriting that is admittedly a little bit samey over time in the way that it is constructed. That means that maybe the solos are going to hit at a predictable time in about half the songs. Maybe some of the choruses hit at the same time, song after song. And the tone of each song kind of feels like they're all hitting at a similar pace. So what we lose on dynamics, we get in substantive songwriting, be it the most of the lyrics are pretty good on this thing. They're again, that's always been a knack of Ross and the band, and when they write sort of verbose melodies that work their way out easily, and so they appear kind of intense, and the speed of the band compared to their peers has always been impressive, past and present. So the thing to note here with this record is that it comes together with a lot of memorable songs. It kind of hits upon a couple of just okay songs along the way, and nothing that kind of flared my bias either way. It's not that this is the best Satan album ever and not the most memorable, but it does do what it set out to do, which was sound a little bit different, write catchier songs, and kind of get to the point a little bit faster. Now, I like it when the band doesn't get to the point. I like the elastic sort of guitar rhythms that were all over Earth Infernal. So I'll naturally prefer that album in that style when they're being more aggressive. But this isn't the sleepier kind of stuff we were getting on albums like Atom by Atom. There's a trade there depending on what you like about the band and what you don't. I will say there's a little bit more heavy rock on this album than I'd expected, and I both liked it and felt it was unfitting on some of the songs, which were kind of not necessarily going prog. They weren't necessarily going pop rock, but they were just kind of wavering between styles a little bit, which messed with the pacing just a little bit on a couple of these pieces. So overall, I think it's a very consistent album you can sit down with and enjoy in a row. All the songs kind of hit one after another, and they keep the speed and the message and the guitar solos flying to the point where you should really appreciate this if you're a fan of the band already. Now, are there better albums that might make you a fan if you've never heard them before? Probably, but I think all of the work from this band is extremely representative of not only themselves, but also heavy metal in general and the tradition of it. So, even if you don't think the production is perfect, which it shouldn't be for traditional heavy metal, especially not where they come from, I think that it is still stylized to the point where it's very appropriate for this band, and I think it fits very well in their discography as what they're doing now. And I think a lot of these songs will hit really well in a live setting. So check them out. Check this out. It released on September 13th. And go ahead and read my review if you'd like more in-depth thoughts on this one.
This is the end of an era,